So, when you hear the name Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, what's the first thing that comes to mind? For most of us, it's the architect of India's constitution. And while that's absolutely true, it's just one piece of a much bigger and honestly a much more revolutionary story. Let's really dig into the full, incredible legacy of this man. This quote right here, this is the key. It's the master key to understanding everything about him. This single idea was the engine that drove his entire life's mission. He had this unwavering belief that political freedom, the right to vote, is basically meaningless if people aren't socially free and equal. For him, this wasn't just some political slogan. It was everything. So who was this multifaceted genius? I mean, just think about it for a second. A top-tier legal mind, a groundbreaking economist, a social reformer who moved millions, and a nation builder in the most literal sense. Let's unpack how one person could possibly be all of these things at once. You see, to really understand the man who would go on to build a nation, you have to understand the injustice that forged him. His life didn't start with power or privilege, not even close. It began in the fire, in the crucible of a deeply oppressive social system. Born into what was then called an untouchable community, Ambedkar's childhood was marked by constant, brutal humiliation. Imagine being a kid forced to sit separately from your classmates, or being told you can't drink from the same water source. These were daily reminders of a social ladder designed to keep him at the very bottom. But it didn't crush him. It did the opposite. It lit a fire that would burn for the rest of his life. And this is how he fought back. He didn't just climb over the barriers put in his way, he completely obliterated them with pure intellectual power. A degree from Bombay University, a PhD from Columbia in New York, a doctorate of science from the London School of Economics, and becoming a barrister in London. He armed himself with education, becoming one of the most qualified people of his entire generation. So with this world-class education, he returns to India. But he's not just a scholar anymore, right? He's a leader. The fight was about to move from the quiet libraries and classrooms out into the streets and eventually right into the halls of power. Okay, now this is a pivotal moment. The Mahad Satyagraha in 1927. On the surface, it seems like it's about water, but it was about so much more. The rule was a symbol of dehumanization. The rebellion? Well, Ambedkar leading thousands to drink from that public tank was a direct, powerful, and public claim to their own humanity. And the result was nothing short of a revolution. It was the birth of the very first organized mass movement against the caste system in India. He didn't stop there. He took this fight to the world stage. At the roundtable conferences in London, he wasn't just another guy in the room. He was the voice for millions of his people. He powerfully argued that India's freedom from the British would be a total sham without the freedom of its most oppressed people. And he demanded separate electorates, a system where they could vote for and elect their own leaders. This led to a huge showdown, one of the most critical negotiations in modern Indian history. His demand for separate electorates clashed with Mahatma Gandhi's vision. The result was a compromise, the Pune Pact. Instead of a separate vote, seats would be reserved for Dalits within the main joint system. Now, this was a massive deal. It basically laid the entire foundation for India's system of affirmative action that exists to this day. Okay, so this brings us to what he's most famous for, but we're also going to look at something that often gets missed, his incredible work fighting for the rights of all workers, no matter who they were or where they came from. As the chairman of the Constitution's drafting committee, he basically embedded his entire life's philosophy into the nation's DNA. Look at these principles. He made sure it wasn't just a political rulebook, but a social one. Justice, liberty, equality, fraternity, and critically, the legal ban on untouchability and the creation of a system of reserved seats. This was social democracy being written into the law of the land. But get this, even before independence, while India was still under British rule, he held a really important job as the Labour member on the Viceroy's Council. And from that position, he was already building a more just India, one piece at a time, by fighting for the working class. Think about your job right now. The 8-hour workday? He was a key figure in getting that established in India. Paid leave? Yep, that was on his agenda. Maternity benefits for female workers? He championed that too. These were not small changes. These were revolutionary protections that helped millions and millions of Indians from every single community. But wait, there's more! We're now going to pivot to one of the most underappreciated parts of his genius, his role as a foundational architect of India's entire economy.
This part of his story is just mind-blowing.
Way before he was writing constitutions, he wrote his doctoral thesis on India's currency. This book, The Problem of the Rupee, was not some dusty academic paper that sat on a shelf. It literally provided the core ideas, the intellectual framework that would be used to create the Reserve Bank of India.
And then boom, 1934, the Reserve Bank of India Act is passed. The principles and guidelines it followed, they were drawn directly from Dr. Ambedkar's work. The man didn't just have an opinion on the economy, he designed the engine room.
And his economic vision just kept going. He helped figure out how the states and the central government would share money. He pushed for massive projects to manage water and power, and he always understood a profound truth, that inflation is like a secret tax that hurts the poorest people the most. The final years of his extraordinary life weren't about slowing down, not at all. Instead, they were the powerful, dramatic culmination of his lifelong philosophical journey. It was his final act of liberation. Feeling frustrated with how slow social change was, he made a final, historic break in October 1956. He led a mass conversion of 500,000 of his followers to Buddhism, a spiritual path away from the caste system. Let that sink in, 500,000 people. Just 2 months later, he passed away. His great work, The Buddha and His Dhamma, was published after his death. And then, decades later, in 1990, the nation he helped build gave him its highest honor, the Bharat Ratna. And that brings us full circle, right back to where we started. Dr. Ambedkar gave India a blueprint for political democracy, but he left a warning. He said it was like a top dressing on an Indian soil, which is essentially undemocratic. His entire life's work leaves us with one big, lingering question that's just as urgent today as it was back then. 7 decades later, how close is India to actually achieving his vision of social democracy?